Hi, this is Dana. On this channel, I speak about spiritual warfare. Um, you guys, this is the third time I'm trying to make this video. Somehow, somebody doesn't want me to talk about these issues. I guess I'll give it a try one more time, and I will pick up where I left in the previous video which I posted. Essentially, I was talking about the essence of the spiritual fighting and basically of the purpose of incarnating into 3D existence, material existence. As I said before, practically what you have, you come in 3D in order to create integration between the spirit and the soul. The soul at all times will stay in 5D with God for everybody. This goes for everybody. Now, most of the bondage is created in 3D, essentially target on one hand the soul, as I said before, for you either to lose the soul or for they to succeed to own your soul. So you would sell your soul through certain practices, through certain beliefs and so on, or lack thereof. For them, it's essential, it's vital for you to at least disconnect your soul from your spirit, and if it's possible to lose your soul, or as I said, to own your soul. Why? Because this disconnects you from communication with the divine realm. Now everybody talks about intuition, following your higher self and so on. Basically all of that is your connection with God by soul. Intuition is essentially your communication with God and with ancestors and everybody from divine realm. So this is important for them because this is the way they can create the deception which is present in 3D, right? So this is one issue important for each side, for them and for those of us standing in light and fighting for light and for God. So it is a battle for your soul, but this is essentially mostly focused on facilitating your existence as God created you and your communication with God so you can carry on your fight. But to me, at least in my experience so far, although they do a lot of witchcraft and so on soul level, they also have, a lot of type of alliances with different type of forces from extraterrestrial, which feed on the agony of the soul. You eliminate a certain type of energy with each and every feeling you hold in your soul, with each and every trauma you hold in your soul. Some of them it's fearfulness, like the sort of like lack mentality or fearful type of a mentality, fearful love, fearful projection into the future and so on, lack of self-confidence basically, and lack of faith in God and so on. That eliminates a different type of energy. So there are many types of energies which you hold in your soul, and unfortunately they have studied thoroughly all ways possible to extract any type of energy from you on soul level, with the end goal either to enslave your soul or to own your soul or to make you lose it. You can lose your soul, I said before, through trauma, for example. You can lose your soul by you consciously accepting type of practices, religious practices, or other type of occult practices which go against 5D and light. You can do it consciously signing contracts with different type of entities and so on. There are many ways in which you can lose soul, okay? But in my spiritual fighting, what I have seen is that God works with all individuals with the soul, working with soul. That means, and I have already a video, I think, made, and clearly I have prophetic writings on Facebook, which you can check on. God does work with souls, with individuals, namely that if you lose your soul, it doesn't mean that you're a lost person. God will follow and create opportunities for you to gain your soul back. So God can send you the same soul or a different soul back to you. So you can actually start again communicating with the divine realm and do the spiritual fighting and hopefully evolve spiritually. So you can go home as well. So it's I want to emphasize that it's a very sensitive, very important, and very complex topic, which I will talk about maybe in another video because it's too much to talk about that. At this point in time, I just wanted to point out that this is one of the targets that they have, and also this is one of the topics important for all of us to hold dear and to focus on, because it's our connection with back home divine realm, right? And I will mention, for example, that God will just send sometimes souls, and I have seen God doing this, sending souls for temporary purpose. For example, I have seen him sending souls to an individual who betrayed before, and I asked God, I said, why you send him soul again? Because I fought very hard to save this soul, and you're sending this soul to somebody who already betrayed us. So why are you sending him this soul? And God basically showed me, for the next few days, the decision this man is making will impact the whole world. And I need him for these few days to remember who he is. I need him to have a soul when he makes this decision, so he would be whole when he makes this decision. And I know for example, the type of agreements or what he's doing overall basically goes against his spiritual evolution. So he will lose the soul. I know he will betray again. I don't expect him to fully recover in one day just because I sent him a soul. But I need him to remember, because if he remembers who he is, then he will when he will lose the soul again. God showed me that individual lost his soul when he was very, very young child. So he said he doesn't remember how it felt to have a soul. So if he loses his soul right now when he's an adult and in a leadership position, then we have a better chance for him to remember how it feels to be back home and stuff like this. So it's very complicated, basically. This is what I want to point out. It's very complicated, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is a key. You cannot evolve spiritually and you cannot return to God or to the divine realm without a soul. And that it's not a black and white situation. But you have to work for your soul. You have to work to receive it, because God will never send a soul to somebody who just does nothing. And you have to work very hard to keep your soul, because there's a lot of witchcraft and a lot of attacks in this matter. Okay, so that's the soul level, right? And the other part, as I said in the previous video, is the spirit. And to me personally, I believe that most of the fight, the spiritual fight in 3D, is focused on the spirit. Why? Because this is a source of power for these crazy bastards who created and maintained the 3D. They pay attention and effort to break the spirit of most individuals through different means. I'm not going to enter into that. Maybe I will make videos on these topics if God guides me to, because also this is very broad. There's a whole industry focused on doing this. And again, they have studied this topic, and they have studied overall the humankind, but also individually each person, and they have extensive profiles, psychological profiles on each individual. They know exactly what kind of trauma bonding was created on each individual, by whom, what are the strings that connect that individual and those wounds to other individuals. They will make all efforts to recruit those people that are useful to them in order to maintain or recreate a trauma. And I have experienced this myself. There are wounds which I have healed myself, right? And they made special efforts to artificially recreate them by regressions during sleep time, and by many other ways, and by levitation and so on, just in order to be able to harvest energy and to be able to block evolution and raising vibration and so on. So they make a lot of efforts to make sure. Why? Because this is a source of power for them. As I think I already said in the previous video, the death in itself, it's not, the death in itself, it's an opportunity for them to practice specific rituals of mummification of the body, and trapping the spirit to use it in necromancy and in all sorts of ritualic practices in graveyard magic, and many others connected to that, many black magic. Now, what I want to point out though here, so the purpose of a light one basically is that you want to recover your spirit. This is why we come into incarnation. Nobody comes to 3D because it's nice. And many people say, 3D is a school. No, it's not a school. 3D is a place where you come to take your power back, because you have to integrate into oneness. And people need to understand that you need to do that, even if you forgot. You have to remember, you need to do that, because in order to stand into 5D dimension, you must be active in outer cosmos. And you cannot be active in outer cosmos with this density of darkness which you carry with you, with yourself in 3D. So you need to evolve spiritually so you can go back home. This is why you came, because you were in 5D and you were in, even if only by soul, you were in 5D and you couldn't stay in outer cosmos space, because you didn't have the integration of the spirit. So you didn't have your power, basically, because your spirit was trapped, and it was trapped because they created all these bondages. So this is why you came. This is not an exercise. We didn't come here. God gives tests to everyone, of course, but this is not a school. The test God gives is only because He wants to make sure that you're prepared for the next phase, because always the next phase is going to be harder than the current one or the previous one. So He gives you tests not because, we are in a school and we're just having fun, let's just take a break now. No, it's not. This is really serious. We came in 3D again to take power back, to break the bondage, so you can integrate your spirit with the soul. Again, upon incarnation, draconian implant has been obviously implanted, inserted in your energetic field, either breaking your spirit, breaking your heart, traumatizing your soul, in order to harvest energy. Harvesting energy, that means taking your power, right? Now, when you do this spiritual fighting, you heal that, you break the bondage, you integrate the spirit with the soul, you integrate the conscious with the subconscious level, and then you become oneness. Then you can go back home. How you do this? How practically? How it happens to do this? basically you take different type of embodiments, yeah, from God, and you go from embodiment to embodiment until you cleanse your energy, until you break all the bondages, right? Once you do that, your auric field, your DNA are being healed, and you return to the original blueprint which God created for you. Or if you work harder, you also have the opportunity to actually evolve even more than the original blueprint that God created for you. Of course, you have to work with God on that, and the divine realm will decide how much progress you made, what are your options in the future, and so on. Okay, so this is what we are talking about. This is the assignment. Clearly, the assignment looks a little bit different to everyone, pending on what type of bondages were created on you, pending what lineage are you coming from, what gifts you have, and so on. So it's tailored situation on each and every individual. This is why God takes time and works with each and every individual. And you have clearly to work with God and with your ancestral team in order to create that. Okay, so at this point, what I want to point out basically is that this is the task we are following, but of course your opponents know this, so they will create all bondages possible and all blockages possible to prevent you from achieving this, right, at any cost. Okay, so they basically use different forces from outer cosmos, which they petitioned and offered different sacrifices to them, to lure them into alliances, to support them. I have made a video and I spoke previously about the insects. This is one example. This is one race which they have petitioned and they work with in order to create all of this craziness. But it's important for me to point out at this moment in time that while we come from 5D to carry on this fight in 3D, all of it in 3D, it's focused on deception. That doesn't mean, okay, actually it does mean that it's stupid. In my personal opinion, most of it is really stupid, and I have lived a lot of frustration dealing with it, because many of the things, for example, many of the slander they do, it's just stupid. It just goes against everything which is reality. In my case, many of the things they have said are very easy to prove wrong, you know, and it's very stupid because it goes against everything that I have ever done or been, and anybody that have ever met me truly can see that. It's self-explanatory, basically. Anyhow, but the point is, they are successful. The 3D exists, and we did incarnate to come to dismantle it. So, to some extent, they are successful. Therefore, we gotta work more. That's the point. And people need to understand more about this and to actually treat it more seriously. The one thing that I would point out in this process, and which is important, is that the underworld doesn't work with them in this. Really, they don't really have a power, true power in the terms and definitions of astral. They really don't have power. That's why they work with deception. But they use this deception and they're very well organized in such a way that they create a lot of turmoil, basically. But of course, they do have some deities which they summon, conjured, and offer sacrifices, but they don't own the underworld. People need to understand this. Much of the attacks are basically just lies. I have been researching this in the past few months, and I was like, you know, a little bit relieved, but also some sort of, you know, disappointed because of all this stupidness which they do. They still create all of this turmoil in the world. They really don't have, even the black magic, as I said on the other channel that I have and talk about astrology, black magic in itself doesn't really work with deities. It really doesn't work with underworld. It just works with a specific type of deities, and I will enter into that just now, which in order for them to create these illusions and so on. Now, of course, they are illusions and they can be treated lightly, but they have a tremendous impact on the human body. And since we are in human incarnation, clearly it affects us, and it's a very difficult fight. Okay? So this shouldn't be taken lightly. When we keep saying deception and illusion, we shouldn't smile about it. It's nothing to smile about, you know. They keep saying, you know, they send to you a confusion spell. Excuse me, have you ever faced a confusion spell? Have you ever faced a conflict spell? Have you ever fought enough to get rid of those, so you will understand how your energetic body and mind is being invaded by darkness, that you cannot think for yourself to count from 1 to 10? This is not fun. This is damaging to your health if you don't heal yourself. And this is damaging on so many levels. So again, when I say these things, I emphasize, you know, this has to be treated seriously. This is not a joke. Any of this is not a joke. This is very damaging, and actually they will pay. They will pay for this, because this is not something funny. Even if they want to just try to, especially when they are caught and they didn't succeed, they will not be absolved by this, by saying, oh, it was nothing that we did. Yes, it actually was something very, very bad, because many people have died because of all of these stupid things. Many people lost their souls. Many people died and got trapped in their stupid necromancy, because their spirit was broken when they died. And they didn't break the bondages and so on. This is not a laughing matter. If we took it serious enough to come from 5D into here to do this fight, and for as long as you have lived so far, you haven't been able to free yourself completely, then this should point to you that this is serious enough. This is not a laughing matter. Anyhow, moving on. The important thing for me to point at this point is that the underworld doesn't really work with them. But they did create artificially different type of deities which they worship, actually, which mimic the underworld, to the same extent to which they created this black magic which mimics the true magic from the divine realm, from 5D, from our deities. Okay? It makes sense because the entire 3D is a copycat of the 5D, right? But at the same time, for example, the underworld refuses to work with them in many circumstances, simply because the type of works they conjure, request, and try to summon or to create break the astral rules, and the underworld basically follows astral rules, because they get punished by God if they don't. And they get punished differently for different things, but the underworld knows exactly what type of punishments are being received, and they will refuse many of the tasks. So this is why they created, again, dark deities or alliances with other extraterrestrial forces from outer cosmos, in order to carry out what was supposed to be the underworld attack and so on. So the question is who they work with, basically, right? And my answer is that they have artificially created deities on which they practice idolatry and they worship them. But I'll give you an example. Anunaki, for example. For me, it was the 2019, before I left on my spiritual journey was very important. So it was like more like a full year, 2018, 2019, in which I carried out this fight against Anunnaki. Actually, God has started showing me about Anunnaki since 2017, but it took time for me to learn things and to put different things together so I can understand the broader picture. And I can actually say, honestly, that an Anunnaki does not exist. It's an artificially created deity from a human. I'm sorry. It's been a long time since I spoke about these things, and they create all sorts of throat chakra attacks. So bear with me until I recover from this. So they create, basically, there's a human which they worship and they behave towards that person. They create a sort of like an embodiment with darkness. But this is artificially created. And they worship that individual literally. And that individual will have at the end a sort of like a mask. This is how it looks in astral. Like a mask, literally, like you go on Halloween party and you have a mask on your face. This is how many of their deities look like. They have a mask, but basically that mask is created from specific types of energy. And God has said to me, they do this through, hold on one second, because I noted here somewhere. He said through ritualic practices. They have different ritualic practices, and they do this in large groups at the same time in different countries, different continents, different cities, many locations in the same city, and so on. So they have specific times when they do the same type of practice against the same type of individual, either worshipping if they want to transform that individual into a deity, or, for example, attacking if they want to destroy somebody else who's fighting. So I can say for a fact Anunnaki does not exist as a deity. Okay, it's literally, it is a artificially created deity by them, but it is human, and it can change from one situation to another. It doesn't have to be the same human unless they decide to uphold the same human. Okay, so again, Anunnaki is one of the deities which is artificially created by them, and they use insects, as I said, as a race, which basically comes down to human body engineering. It's a lot about deception, mind programming, and using your own force to attack yourself or to manifest, to project. For example, I have seen how they do manifesting. Because I couldn't understand how they use my energy, for example, into manifesting. And God has shown to me recently in last few weeks, like, for example, they will get into your brain, with this insects thing, and they will do levitation 24 hours a day, particularly in specific parts of your brain where you have the imagination, because the imagination is the energy of manifestation. So they will do levitation on that, and they will do many other attacks. For example, they would implant energetic devices in your aura or in your tympans, in your ears, with constant 24 hours a day levitation of a specific issue, topic, individual, whatever they want you to manifest, or they want them to manifest with your energy. And basically, they do this, even the glamour magic is done the same thing. They do this until they infuse your subconscious level with that thought. And that is already for them, because you have a lot of light and a lot of power. For them, that is already a projection, which they succeed to create through your energy, through your brain, through your body, without your knowledge. If you don't have high level energy awareness, you don't even understand this is happening to you or through you. You just feel very sick because it's a lot of darkness being sent to you. Okay? And this is how they manifest. and I have seen this being done on individuals where somebody wanted to steal their money, and they will continuously say levitation on that individual's brain, basically to give up his money, to give up his rights, to allow for his money to go to this individual or to this other individual. Everything that they want to do, they literally don't do anything with their own powers because they don't have power. All they have is a lot of darkness creation. And as I said, human body engineering. And insects are very useful to them because as I said in other video, it basically infuses your not only your aura, but it goes deep in your lympha and in your blood and in your gut and in internal organs, right? So they can work there through bacteria and so on. This is all craziness, but unfortunately it has an impact. They create forms of thought and emotion in you. They send hovering spirits, monitoring spirits, and basically they still do a lot of damage because of ceremonial rituals and so on. I mean, what I mean to say is that in itself, all of these attacks by insects are not powerful enough. But they infuse those attacks with a lot of power through ceremonial rituals, which I have been explaining so far. So this is one way in which they succeed to create. So creating artificially deities, which actually are just humans, which are at the top of their so-called leadership of these convents, of these satanic convents, of these churches, this masonry, this whatever other organizations they have, you know. The other one example that I can give is Scientology. This is even more recent research that I have done. And let me see, I noted something here. Yeah, again, that God said that all of these that I have been discussing so far are created or infused with power by ritualic practices and stolen fake identity, an identity which is being created by those practices, right? That mask is an identity. So you don't see the face of the individual. You only see a mask of who he's supposed to be. It's a role play, essentially, right? And of course it's idolatry and energy harvesting and so on. But the other one example which I have been discovered and researched a little bit more recent is how they use Scientology, which is the other instrument extremely damaging and important. This falls into category of religious practices because it's considered to be a church. And most churches actually are in one way or another involved. Most churches, all churches are involved, but most churches are involved with Scientology. Basically, Scientology, I would just say in a few words, quite the same way as they create all these deities with black magic, witchcraft, and occult practices and ritualistic practices. In Scientology, basically, they do the same thing, but they create these invincible people, right? Which essentially are robots. I mean, literally, science is being used in order to transform the human body into a robot. Why? Let me explain why. Because I couldn't understand initially. I have seen and observed energetically for the first time such an individual in 2014 when I met the current president of this country, of Romania. And I met him during a conference, during a debate in a very small club of foreign policy and so on. So I could see him from close and I could literally say that he's not human. And then in the following year, I have seen many individuals who went the same path, and they couldn't understand how and why, but now I got to see how basically the process works. And literally what happens is they are replacing parts of the human body with sort of like a robot organs, parts or something. Why? Because of deterioration. I explained in another video all of these forces and all of this darkness which they take upon themselves, and particularly when you succeed to close a karmic cycle with them, which means you cut them off from the supply. They cannot feed on you anymore, right? This is very dramatic for them. And they become sick, basically, simply because they have attachments which normally they attack us to feed those attachments, darkness attachments, which they carry within themselves, to feed those on us, on our energy. But if you succeed to cut them off, then basically what happens, their body succumbs into darkness which they carry. And that means disease, physical disease, which means gradually their organs are going into entropy. Basically, this is what happens. This is why God is giving them so many chances, but they're just too stupid to understand. I've seen some of them who actually rejected God's proposals for redemption out of ego. This is, to me, it's so stupid. I mean, to have God be so generous to you and to give you a chance to redemption instead of punishing you instantly, and you refuse it because of ego, whatever. The point is, they replace these parts. Not everybody, but those who sign up with and work with Scientology, they replace these parts with robot-like parts, and they become these energy robots, basically, which is for them a huge advantage. Why? Because it protects them from energetic attacks, right? Because they're just robots. But then again, also their attacks become extremely painful as basically their energy is sort of like, because I study the elements of nature for the other channel which I have, I discovered that basically their energy and energy attack is under the sign of fire. So it's extremely powerful because it's the energy, essentially it's still. So what they send to you, it's still. So it's like a poison liquefied metal in your body. It's extremely painful, and you see absolutely instant reaction of your body when you are attacked by this kind of individuals who have replaced most of their human bodies with robots. So it's very powerful, very painful, and okay. So God is telling me to share with everybody how you can alleviate the pain when you are under this kind of attack. It's really, really painful. So you can, oh God, how do you say this in English? That's a puzzlement. In Romanian, you say FIER FORJAT. So you see how you have those big gates out of steel with flowers and stuff like this. That material you must use. That is protection. That can help you. And I will just try to translate FIER FORJAT in English, and I will just put in the description box below how it's called in English, so you can know exactly what to look for, so it won't be any confusion. So this is what happens. These are instruments that they use truly in this fight, because they don't really have a power, really. And you do have the metamorphosis of forces and of the human body in time. Now, I'm not going to go more into depth into this topic But I wanted to point out that nobody is working with them, no deities, and not even the underworld. Okay, they only have artificially created deities and I don't know how to call these robots, human forces. But the reality is that you can fight it if you follow God and you stay in the fight. Now, what I wanted to point out at this moment, especially as we are close to Lionsgate, is that many times this fight, this spiritual fighting, it's a process. And something that I have discovered in recent months is that being a process means that specific dates when a bondage was created must develop in order for that type of attack to stop. So it will basically shift, it will transform, and that type of attack will end basically in the same day, the same month of the year when it was created. Okay? But for that you have to do conscious spiritual fighting and to consciously know what is that was done, that needs to stop, and when it was created, by whom, and so on, so you can claim justice in that around that date against that individual, right? So this is important to understand, because some dates you can determine, you can influence, but some others you just simply can't. I'm not a very patient person, and I usually want things to move fast, not superficial, but as fast as possible, as long as it's the right thing to do. But I learned, that some dates you basically cannot alter. It's about astral rules and metamorphosis of the forces. So basically you have to wait for the same day, the same month of that specific event when it took place, in order to end a contract, to stop an attack, and for that force which is actually being attached to you through that attack, to go through metamorphosis and transform, and basically return to who created it, and so on. Now I'm just going to point out briefly, saying that when you encounter these type of transformations, it's very important to get guidance, because sometimes it is critical to isolate yourself from the individuals who carries these forces. Why? Because if they feed on you, this process is being delayed. So if they get the opportunity to get your energy, the entropy stops or is being delayed. And then you extend the cycle, the karmic cycle, and the life of that force. I hope I'm clear enough. Sometimes it's important for you to isolate yourself, so nobody can actually, if you carry on your normal life in 3D, I said this in previous videos, that force is gonna do body jumping, and that force is gonna go into somebody else that you are encountering these days, and will continue to feed on you. Why? Because the body of the previous individual is already in entropy, so it's not a good host body anymore. So they will migrate into another human being and continue to feed on you. But you need to, that's why sometimes you need to stop, and you need to just isolate yourself and not encounter in any way with those individuals. Let them deal with their own demons so the cycle can end. Because even if you broke the bondage, if you don't succeed to send that force back, that's not helpful. It's going to continue to feed from you. Okay? So you must ask for divine guidance, because it's not the same for everyone. And you must know when it's desirable for you to actually fight it, because sometimes you have to fight. It depends what kind of attachment you have. If they made a claim on you, then you have to fight. If it's only attached, no, you don't always have to fight. It's very complicated, so you need spiritual guidance. But I gave you one example why you need spiritual guidance. And I don't know why I wrote this here. Basically, mentioning that there are, of course, those who willingly sign up for permanent robot status. And they basically, these are many of the politicians, because of course they have done a lot of work with darkness to get those positions to which they are not entitled. By the way, it's just stolen rights from others. And in order to avoid energy attacks directed at them, because they really don't have any power, so they cannot actually be exposed to energetic attacks. But yeah, I already said this. Their attacks, you must be very careful, because those who actually have extensive work done on them with robot status, then their attacks and projections, any projections at you, basically, as I said before, it's like they send liquid metal into your lymph, into your blood, into your organs, depending on what type of attack they want to do. It's really, really, really painful. So you must be careful, because really, you feel it like a poison. You literally feel it like a poison which is spreading into your body, and your whole body doesn't. It's like it doesn't breathe anymore. It doesn't function anymore. It's like you're literally. I don't know how to say. Not even frozen. Even frozen is better than that. Actually, it's really painful. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. This is what I wanted. I had to share with you from my recent research, and basically as a preparation from the Lionsgate for the Lionsgate. Why? Why is this so? Why is this a preparation for the Lionsgate? It's because it's basically 808. It's a new beginning, always, every year. So it's always a new phase. So it's important for you to understand and to reflect where you are right now, and what exactly can the Lionsgate and the lion race, because there is a lion race in 5D, what you can request to receive, what kind of help, what kind of new beginning in your life will be beneficial to you, and to get ready, to work with them, and so on. Anyhow, this is the topic that I was guided to discuss with you. I imagine this must be helpful for some individuals. I will continue now, for at least for some time, to make videos and to share information from my spiritual fighting research and findings which God shows to me that are useful at this point in time for you guys. Okay, so then I'll post this right now. I don't know exactly when you're gonna get to see it, and then I will come back in a few hours to see what is the next topic. As always, you can find in the description box. In this video, you will find the name of this FIER FORJAT in English, and of course all the other information about my PayPal account if you want to donate and support me and my work, and also information about my Facebook page, where you can go and find all my prophetic writings, so you can actually read for yourself whatever is useful to you right now. I would be happy to answer questions if you post them in comment section, and I'll hear you in the next one.